Hi, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth. Today I want to get into Freemasons, Flat Earth, and the Boogie Woogie. Basically want to show and out all these men in power we've heard so much about. There's stories that come back that tell our narrative of our history. That is his story, but now we're coming up with a new story of her story about an elegant design system of a dome and flat earth and many-dimensional existence. So we're going to start here with Admiral Byrd, but by no means is he the only one, as we'll get into a little bit down the road here. But Admiral Byrd was a 33-degree Freemason, a member of the Federal Lodge in Washington, D.C. His brother was a very powerful senator at the time. He led private journeys for the Rockefellers, came back with over 75,000 papers that were kept in the Rockefeller files on Antarctica, never to be seen, dropping Masonic flags on the two poles, established first Antarctic Lodge number 777 with New Zealand. 60 of the 82 members were all Freemasons. Byrd died mysteriously after that, as did many of them. Off limits to Antarctica treaty was created right after that. And as you can see here, Admiral Byrd is the authority on Antarctica and discovery of the North Pole, and that's all he did in his entire time working for the government, working for private enterprise Rockefellers, was the pole. So the very well, and if you notice here, notice the symbol here. This is an upside down pentagram, sign of the devil, Satan, Lucifer, and all things evil. But National Geographic has to have their monument saying how great this guy was when he was a secret society Freemason, and then all the propaganda showing all his pictures. And here he is using his phonograph. He was the only guy down as a meteorologist on his second trip down to Antarctica in 32, and he manned a station for 6 months with temperatures minus 50 to 150 degrees in a wood shack, a lantern, but he got his phonograph, man. He's got his music. And here he is just, reading a book and having a little cup of tea and whatnot. I mean, the propaganda is just extensive on this. Oh, here's all his supplies with his trusty dog on the sled he had to pull in. And this is the snow job and the snow outfit all together. So next we come to one Werner von Braun, NASA and the Nazis. Just starting right off on von Braun's tombstone, it has verse 1.3 from Psalms 19:1. And I highly recommend you read this. And in part of it, it says, "The firmament showeth his handiwork." Now, why would the leader of the Apollo missions, the Saturn rocket, the man who was able to launch the alleged space race, who did the V1, V2 buzz bomb rockets and whatnot, why would he put that on his tombstone? And as again, you can get on the website, here he is with all the generals and all the other eugenicists and Nazis that came over in Operation Paperclip, where they moved over 3,000 Nazis down through the Vatican rat lines down to Argentina, and then they brought them up to the United States and put them in power in the eugenicist programs, MK Ultra, Bayer Pharmaceuticals, and von Braun was slated to lead the Apollo Saturn rockets. And here he is with Walt Disney in 1958, where they came out with a comic movie to show the space adventure going to the moon, and so they were selling it back then together. And it just shows that NASA has been funded on lies and secrecy all the time. And we just have to admit this is our history, and this is what we have done to this country, is kept everybody in the dark and sold massive, massive lies. Speaking of massive lies, we got Mr. Buzz Aldrin and the NASA Freemason connection. And you'll notice these fedoras, they all have these secret societies and not so secret societies, but they're all part of the club. And as George Carlin said, we're not in it. Buzz Aldrin, a member of the Montclair Lodge 144 in New Jersey, 3 degrees is courtesy of other lodges, initiated Oak Park Lodge in Montgomery, passed on the same lodge on April 12, 1955. Raised by Greenleaf Lodge 169, received his York Rite degrees and orders from the York Rite Festival. Members of the Arabia Shrine Temple of Houston. Arabia Shrine Temple, folks. He's now a member of the Clear Lake Lodge, so he's been a busy, busy guy and getting rewarded for all his deception that he's been pulled off. So what the Freemasons do, the first 3 degrees are called blue degrees, is they show them this apron and tell them that one of our guys went to the moon. And this is the part, some of the ways these guys deceive us. Let's get into it a little bit more. And here we can see a letter from the National NASA Aeronautics and Space Administration, or not a space agency, but a marketing company, folks. They're a marketing company. Billions and billions, if not trillions, of our tax dollars have been spent to enrich others at the hoax of all of us. And here's a letter from Aldrin, talks to the Grand Commander of his club, one of his clubs. And you may not believe this, but this is a picture of Mr. Obama at a very early age with Gus Grissom, looks like in Hawaii. And we see more and more evidence of the Freemasonry that is running NASA today. So there's a pattern emerging here, and what we need to know is who is behind this and why are they doing it. But the who is behind it we're going to get into more, because once we get into it, you're going to understand how Freemasonry is in all parts of our life, but it's only a small cog in the great big wheel of the powers that be that run the show around the world. And now let's get into the connections with Byrd and Buzz Aldrin and Werner von Braun and their secret societies, and why secret societies rule. We have the Freemasons, we have the Knights of Malta, and the Skull and Bones, and most people know about the Skull and Bones 322. That's when the Brussels alleged bombings, the date of that, and Bush's members and many Yale to go to Yale. Knights of Malta is the Jesuits. They're the military branch of the Vatican. And in these next 2 articles I'm citing here, they don't mention the Jesuits once. And these are the all-power, which we'll get into at the end here, who run all of the Freemasons, who run all of the presidents, who run all of the governments, and have run them for a very long time, including the NASA hoax. So let's get into a little bit about what the Freemasons are. Within some secret societies, they're bound by an extreme blood oath to never reveal their secrets. The 33rd degree is an honorary and highest degree of the Scottish Rite Freemasons. By Jim Marr's Rules by Secrecy, he states that the initial first degree, of which there are 33, quote, the initiate into the order's beginning or first degree of the Blue Lodge pledged to, quote, binding myself under no less penalty than to have my throat cut across, my tongue torn out by the roots, and my body buried in the rough sands of the sea at low water mark, where the tide ebbs and flows twice in 24 hours. The penalties in higher degrees grow progressively more gruesome. Now, doesn't that sound like what happened to Prometheus when he was tied to the rock on the shore and he had his liver eaten by the eagle every day for many lifetimes until he was finally freed? And isn't Prometheus the statue that's erected on the Rockefeller Center as well as the recent movie out? So this is the connections, folks. So there's another blood oath that's very similar, and you can tell they're very similar by their wording. So let's get into the Jesuits' blood oath. So this is the 4th vow of the Jesuit oath, and I blew it up so you can really understand what these all men are about and their mission. This is from Ignatius Loyola's founding of the Jesuits. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants and liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and to exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up their stomachs and wombs of their children, and crush their infants against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their execrable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or superior of the brotherhoods of the holy faith of the Society of Jesus. Doesn't get any clearer than that, folks. So this is from Freemasons, Roots and Links to the Occult by Teresa Morris. Masonry, like all religions, all the mysteries, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead. Take a look at Exxon Mobil and notice the double X's offset on the sign of Exxon Mobil on their logo. Just to give you an example, that's a double cross. Look on the fasces on each side of the House of Congress where the president gives his annual speech each year. And look on the fasces, F-A-S-C-E-S, and you'll see those are Lycor, slave canes, and a henchman's axe in a bundled up rods that are on each side and also on the Lincoln Memorial. It's in plain sight for anybody with eyes to see. American Freemasonry includes local lodges, Scottish Rite temples, York Rite, and Shriners. Prince Hall is the Masonic order for black men. Shaquille O'Neal is a member of that one. The Eastern Star is an auxiliary organization for wives and adult daughters of Masons. There are also Masonic organizations for children, Demolay for boys, Job's daughters, and Rainbow Girls. These are known as adoptive Masonry, which means that wives, sisters, daughters, and sons of Masons are spiritually adopted into the Masonic order. You can get in, but you can't get out. The highest level Masons, princes, and adepts deliberately deceive the Masons under them. Part of the symbols are displayed there to initiate, but is intentionally misled by false interpretations. It is not intended that he shall understand them, but is intended that he shall imagine he understands them. That's from Albert Pike, who founded the Scottish Rite Freemason, who's in the tomb in Washington, D.C. at the Scottish Rite Freemason Lodge. Also, down in the Carolinas, was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan. Also, they have a Knights of Malta symbol on the Ku Klux Klan as well. Columbus had his Knights of Malta Red Cross as well on the flag. The Rothschilds have their Red Cross. They founded the Red Cross International. The British flag has a Red Cross. It's all red, white, and blue, just like the United States, just like Britain. We supposedly defeated them, and we make the same flag, red, white, and blue. What's Russia's new flag after the end of the Soviet Union? Red, white, and blue. France, Chile, Puerto Rico. You getting it here, folks? It's all part of the club, and we're not in it. All right, so even a 32nd degree Mason will have limited understanding unless he studies the secret doctrine, the writings of the princes and the depths of mystery. It's also Helen Blavatsky's got a book called The Secret Doctrine, which you should read as well. Freemason is religion. Masons meet in temples, such as the Scottish Rite Temple. They have an altar, and there's a holy book on it. They have prayers, deacons, and religious titles for their leaders, such as high priest and worshipful master. Christianity is even considered to be Freemasonry, which has become encrusted with inflexible biblical doctrines. Sorry about the phone call. That was from Jesuit Central telling me that if I put this piece out, they were going to flail and boil and kill me like they did to John F. Kennedy, like they did to Abraham Lincoln, like they did to Princess Diana, and many other hit pieces. So I want to get back to here. Occultism, occult theory of practice, belief in hidden or mysterious powers, and the possibility of human control of them. The worship pagan gods. The Masonic doctrine of the unity of God teaches that the names of the different nature gods, along with Jehovah, all denote the generative principle in nature. The generative principle, reproductive. These guys are all about reproduction. The G in the Freemason symbol with the compass and the square with the G in the middle stands for generative reproductive. This is why they sent Apollo, allegedly the sun god, to the female Isis, the moon. They must create to destroy. They're creating Isis now so they can destroy her, the feminine principle. The Royal Arch degree shows that Masons are really Baal worshippers. Most Masons do it without realizing it by participating in rituals that they really don't understand. However, a few top-level Masons, those in the highest authority, know exactly what they're doing, and they report to their higher-ups, which we'll get into in a minute. All right, Masonic initiation. Before being initiated, candidates for membership do not know that any oath will be involved, much less a bloody nature of the oath. They take the oath a few words at a time, repeating the words that the worshipful master says them. Before they start saying the oath, they are assured that nothing they are going to say will in any way conflict with their religion. At the same time, he is led in an oath. The candidate is disorientated, blindfolded, half-naked, confused, afraid, and humiliated. He has been stripped of all his clothes and his wedding ring and has put on something similar to pajamas with one leg rolled up and the shirt half off his torso. He has been blindfolded with a hood, and he had a rope put around his neck. He has been led around during the initiation ritual like a blind dog on a leash. He has no idea who is watching him or how many there are. He has been told that he is in the darkness and must depend on masonry to give him light. After having been pressured into taking the oath that he never expected to take, in which he only partly understood because he is disorientated and only heard a few words at a time, the initiate is given a written copy of the oath. He is required to memorize it word for word. This is similar to being pressured into signing a blank check and later finding out what is going to cost you. All this is a powerful means of subjugation and mind control. It can bind men to the lodge in its authority, both mentally and spiritually. Yeah, or you're going to be killed. That's how it binds you to the lodge, folks, by deception. They start out with deception, and they lead the rest of the way through deception, coercion, enforcement, and threat of death. Now, just a little sidebar for all you in the medical communities. I highly recommend Jim Corbett's Western Medicine. And where I'm going with this is he gets into how the founding of Western medicine by the Rockefellers, the reason they take residency and don't let them sleep is not to test them to see if they can handle the pressure. The real reason is because the same reason they're using here is through deception. If you take all these doctors to be, tell them they're super smart and the best of the best, run them and compete against them for 23 hours a day, staying up and hardly sleeping, they're not going to remember a thing. And so when they get into their doctor's practice, what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to go and ask the drug companies and the Rockefellers and all the guys in power that sell all the products what they need to prescribe, what the medicine and treatments are. That's how they roll. Masonic secrets. Masonics spend their lives carefully guarding secrets, initiation rituals, secret words, obligations, oaths, signs, special body language, and secret distress signals, the grand hailing sign, and the question, quote, is there no help for the widow's son? They take blood oaths, promising to allow themselves to be killed if they betray any of these secrets. Masonic morals. Masons are required to tell lies and even perjure themselves to protect other Masons. Do you remember in the fourth vow of the Jesuits, they will lie if the Pope tells them to lie. Black is white and white is black if the Pope tells them. They are also required to obey even orders which they know to be immoral. Quote, you must conceal all the crimes of your brother Masons except murder and treason, and these only at your option. And should you be summoned as a witness against a brother Mason, be always sure to shield him. Lie, prevaricate, falsely, don't tell the whole truth in this case. Keep his secrets. Forget the most important parts. It may be perjury to do this if it is true, but you're keeping your obligations. And remember, if you live up to your obligations strictly, you'll be free, my son. This is their promise to you. You'll be freed. Right or wrong, his very existence as a Mason hangs upon the obedience to the powers immediately set above him. The one unpardonable crime in a Mason is contumacy, insubordination, or disobedience. According to the Masonic oaths, Masons are to be killed if they reveal Masonic secrets. Captain William Morgan, remember the scotch or bottle of booze, the Captain Morgan, a high-degree Mason, made Masonic secrets public in his book, Freemasonry Exposed. Quote, when a brother reveals any of our great secrets, whenever, for instance, he tells anything like Boaz or Tubal-Cain or Jachin or that awful Mahabone, or even whenever a minister prays in the name of Christ in any of our assemblies, you must always hold yourself in readiness, if called upon, to cut his throat from ear to ear, pull out his tongue by the roots, and bury his body at the bottom of some lake or pond. Of course, all this must be done in secret, as it was in the case of the notorious man Morgan, for both law and civilization are opposed to such barbarous crimes. But then, you know you must live up to your obligation, and so long as you've sworn to do so, by being very strict and obedient in the matter, you will be free from sin. And I'm including in the show notes this link to this very important document so you can read more about the Klan and the Mafia, how they're all intermingled, the influence on America, the influence on Christians, Freemasonry and cults, and their primary loyalty. We should read this one. We then swore the true allegiance to the Supreme Council, 33rd degree above all other allegiances, and swore never to recognize any other brother as being a member of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry unless he also recognizes the supreme authority of this Supreme Council. There are some extremely prominent men there that day, including a Scandinavian king, 2 former presidents of the United States, an internationally prominent evangelist, 2 other internationally prominent clergymen, and very high official of the federal government, the one who actually presented with me the 33 degree. So let's look about who are members of this exclusive occult, Baal, Luciferian, Satan, evil club that we know today and have known for a long time in our history books. Now I'm just going to scroll down here, and I want you to see if you notice any names like Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Dwight Eisenhower, Lyndon Johnson, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Skull and Bones. How about world leaders? Tony Blair, Winston Churchill, Joseph Stalin, Juan Perón of Argentina, Nelson Mandela, Africa, Juan Carlos, King of Spain, Pinochet, Chile, Saddam Hussein, Iran, all the prime ministers of Canada, most of them. Habsburg, Crown Prince of Austria-Hungary, Prime Minister of Australia, King Hussein of Jordan. How about in the military? They all went to Georgetown in the School of Foreign Services School, and then they run the military generals out of Georgetown. Please note that Georgetown Jesuits hosted Bill and Hillary Clinton and are part of the whole plan. Donald Trump running for president went to Fordham, a Jesuit school. California governor of California, Brown went to Jesuit school. His next up, named Gavin Newsom, who was a mayor of San Francisco, who's going to be the next governor after Brown. He went to Santa Clara University, Department of Homeland Security. Janice Napolitano, she went to Jesuit school. I mean, these are all above levels in the Jesuits, above the Freemasons. Intelligence and military, Alan Dulles, as we said, General Reinhard Gehlen from the Nazi intelligence, Heinrich Himmler. He was the Black Pope for Hitler. He was the handler. Stalin had a handler as well. The handler for President Obama, the Jesuit, is a guy named Joseph Biden, Roman Catholic. J. Edgar Hoover, Knights of Malta, William Cooper, Knights of Malta, all the spook guys, General Powell, 33 degree Freemason, Douglas MacArthur, Oliver North, all these guys, George Tenet, Leon Panetta. All these names, folks. They're all in the club. They'll flame, boil, toast, kill anybody upon orders from above. Rockefeller, Brzezinski, Kissinger, John Wilkes Booth. Sidebar here on President Lincoln, which we'll get into in another piece. Conviction of 6 people, Roman Catholics, including John and Mary Stuart, for the killing of Abraham Lincoln. John Stuart got asylum in the Vatican. Also to note that after that, the United States did not allow any type of ambassadorship from the Vatican until Reagan allowed it in 1984. So the Vatican was banned from politics in the United States after the assassination and the trial conviction of the Jesuits until 1984, when Reagan let him back in. Paul Warburg, his cousin ran the Reichstag Bank during Nazi Germany. John Dulles, John Kerry, Prescott Bush, Earl Warren, Warren Van Bruin, Ted Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy, Tip O'Neill, Rick Santorum, Henry Ford, Karl Marx, Vladimir Lenin, J.B. Bush, Albert Pike, Leon Trotsky, H.G. Wells, Jeb Bush, Billy Graham, Reverend Jackson, Oral Roberts, Jesse Helms, Jack Kemp, Al Gore, Barry Goldwater, Newt Gingrich, Storm Thurmond, Michael Bloomberg, Michael Chertoff, ran the Department of Homeland Security, and Rudy Giuliani. Quite a list here, folks, but it goes on. Now they got to mind control you with the infotainment, mind programming. That's why they call TV programming. Walt Disney, Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek, 20th Century, Hollywood, Universal Studios, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Ron Howard directed Apollo 13, Robert Murdoch, largest owner of media corporations, William Buckley, Henry Luce, who owned all the Time magazine, Life and Fortune, etc., Pat Buchanan, John Wayne, Clark Gable, Will Smith, a lot more actors on this list. They bring them in the club and they got them forever. Also, the movies they made, which gets into the whole NASA hoax and the whole heliocentric quote theory. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Spielberg, E.T., Spielberg, Taken, Spielberg, Stanley Kubrick, 2001, George Lucas, Star Wars, Roddenberry, Men in Black, starring Will Smith, Freemason, Ron Howard, Freemason, Apollo 13. And now we get to the astronauts and close it out here with the rest of these astronauts, or astronauts. James Webb, Aldrin Cooper, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who founded Noetic Society out in Petaluma, California, and the rest of these liars, thieves, murderers. That's what they really are, and deception artists, and they don't even know who's above them. So heading over to my website here, and this is Jesuits Ruler of Evil. If you link up here in the top section right there, you'll get all these articles I have on the Jesuits, showing the power they've held for over thousands of years. Still true this day. We're still under Roman Catholic law, Roman Latin law. We still use money that was designed by Caesar. They still run the show, folks, and it's really hard for people to understand this, but I'll get into this in a minute in America. All right, so this is more of their oath. I just want to hit home how despotic and evil these people are, males. In confirmation of which I hereby dedicate my life, my soul, and all corporal powers, and with this dagger which I now receive, I will subscribe my name written in my own blood and testimony thereof, and should I prove false or weaken in my determination, may my brethren and fellow soldiers of the militia of the Pope cut off my hands and my feet, and my throat from ear to ear, my belly opened and sulfur burned therein, and with all the punishment that can be afflicted upon me on this earth, and my soul be tortured by demons in an eternal hell forever. And they mean this, folks. They've murdered many, many people this way, and they make it very torturous. So here's some of the articles in here, which I'll put in the show notes, but let's take a quick look into who's running how this whole story of heliocentrism 500 years ago, starting with Copernicus and then Newtonian and the Einstein fraud and all went down. And we'll just do it real quick. You can look in the notes to get even further. So it starts with the Freemasons, but as we can see from this chart right here, what has really been created as a trinity, the Trilateral Commission, is really referring to the Vatican, the City of London, and Washington, D.C., the religion, finance, and military of the old world power. The new world power, old world power, same kids on the block, folks. They've been doing it a long time. They're just selling you that something is going to change when they don't need to change anything because it's working perfectly for them. Please Google city-state and any one of these and see that they have their own mayor, their own police force, their own constitution, have their own money system, and they control the world, truth be told. Now here's how the Jesuits rule. They got what they call their global Jesuit assistancies, and down here we see the U.S. assistancy. And here's the power structure, starting with the Jesuits on top. There's 6 levels, the Black Pope above them. But look what they rule, and look where the Freemasons are. They're way down here. And then think of all the presidents and all the astronauts and all the CIA and all the spook agencies. All the spook agencies report in the Jesuit world to a thing called the entity. There's a big book by an author I forget right now, but the entity, and they control the CIA, the NSA, the Mossad, the M16, all the M15, all the rest of these intelligence agencies all report to the Jesuits under the entity. You can Google that and look it up for yourself. So I want to take a little sidebar here and speak about the Hofjuden court Jews. Now, most of us are aware that the Jews are very involved in the banking system, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Goldman Sachs, all of these that run basically the monetary system. But these are not the people in power. The power base is Roman, and it's Jesuit, and the Knights of Malta, and the 13 satanic bloodline families I mentioned already. So the court Jew is known as the Hofjuden, and they were the Jewish bankers who handled the finance or lent money to European royalty and nobility. And in return for their services, this is the deal they got, court Jews gained social privileges, including some cases being granted noble status. Court Jews were needed because usury did not apply to them, whereas it did to Christians. The rise of the absolute monarchies in Central Europe brought numbers of Jews, mostly Ashkenazi origin, notice the word Nazi in Ashkenazi, into the position of negotiating loans for various courts. So they could loan out money at interest and collect the banking money, and that was the deal they made, where the Roman Catholics, Roman Catholicism and Jesuits were only interested in power, and they would keep most of the wealth anyway, so it didn't matter. So the court Jews, as agents of the rulers and in times of war as the purveyors and the treasurers of the state, enjoyed special privileges. They were under the jurisdiction of the court martial and were not compelled to wear the Jewish badge. They were permitted to stay wherever the emperor held his court and to live anywhere in the Holy Roman Empire, even places where no other Jews were allowed. Wherever they settled, they could buy houses, slaughter meat according to the Jewish ritual, and maintain a rabbi. They could sell their goods wholesale and retail. They could not be taxed or assessed higher than the Christians. In other words, they were given preferential treatment. They could be like Christians. They could make a ton of money. Okay, so getting down here is to some of the players of the court Jews that they list in Wikipedia, which is one source, but there's many others. We see the Oppenheimer family, and today you have the Oppenheimer funds, a military supplier of the Holy Roman Empire. The Vice Chancellor in Russia, Peter the Great, had his Hofjuden, court Jew. The Habsburgs, one of the biggest landowners during Europe in the late ages, 1700s. Hofjudens were controlling the money for them. And here we have Mayor Amsel Rothschild himself. He had court factor as William Elector of Hesse. So back then, even we had Baron von Escalise and Francis II of the Holy Roman Empire. So you can see here, folks, when you see them truck out Obama after he won the Iowa president Democratic nomination, the next morning he was in front of AIPAC. We see all the stooges, all the pledges, Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Benjamin Netanyahu getting in front of the Senate and House of Congress and holding up a bomb that says Iran's about to bomb, and Simon Perez gets audience, and Israel is said to control this country. That's not what they're saying, folks. It's not the ones in control. If you see them, those aren't the ones in power. The ones in power are not the ones you see on the right hand. The ones in power are the ones you see, or the ones you don't see that's in the left hand, okay? That's very important to understand. Then we have the Committee of 300, but above those we have the families, the 13 satanic bloodlines, which Fritz Springmeier wrote in his really good book. So the Jesuits' command of the United States, the current most powerful man in the United States, is a man named Thomas Egan, and he and Joe Biden talk a lot about how they handle the president. And as I said before, we had Jesuit Bill Clinton. We have Trump, who's a Jesuit. We have Illuminati Ted Cruz, which I'll link in the show notes as well. This is the sixth black pope, which nobody knows about. There's a gray pope representing the families above him. And I know I'm going very fast over this and it may be very new to you, but please understand that you can research this on the websites. It just takes some time, but you'll understand what I'm saying here if you're not getting it now. Father Grummer, when he appeared, was one of the 5 Jesuit priests who serve as assistants to the Jesuit general. So he reports for the United States. And, time after time, we see them just right in between the presidents, laughing and having a great time. And again, here's some of the bloodline offshoots that have come from the original families from Italy, the Breakspears and Orsinis and the rest of them. Their bloodlines include the Bundy family, Astor family, DuPont, Kennedy, Onassis, Rothschilds, Rockefellers. Okay, get an idea on that. Here's Obama surrounded by the intelligence team. Roman Catholics, folks, all Roman Catholics. J. Edgar Hoover famously said, and notice the fedora, the individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. The American mind simply has not come to the realization of the evil which has been introduced into our midst. It rejects even the assumption that human creatures could espouse a philosophy which must ultimately destroy all that is good and decent. He said this in 1956, folks. It can't be truer than today. Napolitano, card-carrying Jesuit. Here's members of the Knights of Malta, and you notice some of these names on here as well. Nicholas Brady, he was the famous one trying to get the guns that was shot. They will take a bullet for him if the Pope tells it. Henry Luce, the Time magazine, Bill Donovan, Alan Dulles, Avery Dulles, Archbishop Egan I was telling you about. You know, they're all part of the club here, and we all know their names, but we don't know their little secret until now, or it's getting out now more, which is good. Bowie Kuhn, Commissioner of Baseball, Senator Ted Kennedy, Joseph Kennedy, Lee Iacocca got the bailout for Chrysler, who drove the assassination car into the Chrysler Ford and had it taken, all the bullets taken out. Here's our friend Mr. George W. Bush with all his Freemason buddies. Joseph Biden reporting back to his handler. You know, it's all a club, and these guys are all in it, and they're trying to keep it secret. Here's the Time magazine, loose publications celebrating the Holy Alliance back in good graces. Now here's the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, bending over and kissing the ring of the Pope, bowing. And look at Bush, how intense he is that it's doing it right. Kennedy, for we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. 1961, 5 years later. And let's go back in time, and let me get this a little easier to read. A guy named John Adams, you ever heard of him? Second President of the United States. And I'm sorry if I'm being sarcastic here, but we need to get angry, folks. We need to get really, really angry. And we need to stop this, or our children have no chance. That's what really gets me going. So John Adams said, quote, "My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but is supported by unquestionable authorities, and is very particular and very horrible. There, like the Jesuit order, restoration in 1814 by Pope Pius VII is indeed a step towards darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuit. If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is the Society of Ignatius Loyola, aka the Society of Jesus, with their Knights of Malta military arm. President Lincoln, I feel more and more every day that it is not against the Americans of the South alone I am fighting. It is more against the Pope of Rome, his perfidious Jesuits, and their blind and bloodthirsty slaves." Now Lincoln, as I said, was assassinated, but also was not not very well known is that during the Civil War, Jefferson Davis, in a letter that we'll publish later, and we have, states that the Pope will support every financial need Jefferson Davis needed to wage war against the North and Lincoln. Adam Weishaupt, if you notice in the back of the dollar bill, it says 1776. They're referring to the day that Adam Weishaupt, who was a Freemason, who reported to the Jesuits and had a handler. I don't have his name right now, but he also set up the Freemasonry here along with Albert Pike, who I mentioned earlier. And this is a pope, folks. This is the one, the Ratzinger, the Rottweiler, as he was called, who was brought in allegedly to stem the pedophile nature of all the Vatican and all the priests and the little boys and all the sick things they did. And then he was outed, and who did they bring in? Yes, sirree, Pope Francis, the first ever Jesuit in 600 years. As I said, I'm gonna put all this in my show notes, and I want to end here before I get too worked up. But please check this out, folks. It's hidden occulted knowledge that's coming out. The time is now. We need to wake up. We need to take back our liberties, our freedoms, and change what must change, or we're going to end up, as they say, directly where we're heading, at the control of others. And if you want to know where they state we're heading, just take a look at this one picture right here. It's called the Georgia Guidestones. So the Georgia Guidestones are 2.5 hours northeast of Atlanta, Georgia. And I actually went there a few years ago to see if it was what it was really about. And I came away with a very serious knowledge that there was serious intention with putting this together. Someone spent a lot of time and money. It's a granite monument in Elbert County. Six granite slabs weighing 250,000 pounds. At the top, they have a cornerstone, which they laid on end, 4 sides, written in Hebrew, Sanskrit, cuneiform. Here you can see it. classic Greek, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Babylonian cuneiform. And this is where it says the age of reason. And then down here we have the 10 Commandments they etched in Russian, Arabic, Hebrew, Hindu, Spanish, and Swahili. And then English over on this side. And these are almost 20 feet tall. And then inside these slots, they are astronomical slots showing all high noon and features. Like I said, they're very serious intention. Elberton County has the finest granite in the world. Tens of millions of dollars was spent. And here's the 10 Commandments, folks. First one says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 500 million, we're at 7 billion. I'll let you do the math. 1991, they erected this, folks. The very last of the 10 Commandments says, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. And I'll put this also in the show notes. Can you see? So I'm going to end it here. I've done enough talking, but I hope you get a sense of who runs this show, how long they've been running it. Mostly males. They're forced into the club, and then in the club for life. You can get in, but you can't get out. And this is who we're dealing with. This is the nuts and bolts of who we're dealing with here. And once you understand this, it is very easy to understand the flat earth conspiracy and how they deceived us from knowing our true cosmology for so long to make us feel so insignificant. Because once they got us on us heels, and once they got us fearing, and got us dividing, and they can conquer, they can knock us off much easier. So that's the game plan. Please awaken your fellow brothers and sisters as to the cause, as to being aware, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for listening.